This presentation critically looks at Africa's path to the Fourth Industrial Revolution while using a development model that is reminiscent of the 19th century Industrial Revolution. In the past decade or so, Africa had emerged as one of the leading fastest growing economies, and except for the period that was impacted by the pandemic, we seem to be back on the right track. Of course, we desire secure, reliable, and affordable energy and other resources. But the question is what path we should take to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Should we retrace the same steps as those traced by the West since 1800s? The answer is, of course not. We should be able to take advantage of the developments in technology and leapfrog into the 21st century. One of the best examples is the cell phone revolution in Africa. It managed to bypass the old telegraphic poles, and some areas registered as high as 300% per annum growth in the sector. So that was a demonstration that it is possible. However, the question is, at the moment, are we really on the right path? And to understand where one is going, as they say, one has to look into their past first. Now, what has happened in the past 100 years? Maximizing of growth was the norm. Industrial growth, economic growth. Cities grew bigger and bigger. Demand for infrastructure kept rising, and all development was anchored by the cheapest available energy, regardless of how dirty it was. Volumes of effluent grew, and our air quality was substantially degraded. Discharge of effluent into ecosystems and river was the norm, very rampant. And this is the best part of it. Our good planners were well trained to use good data and statistics. And a good city planner would look at especially demand as a result of increasing demand as a result of increasing population. 5%, 6% growth would be matched by planning to expand the infrastructure by the same margin. That is good practice. However, very little attention was being paid to how efficiently the existing infrastructure is being used. There is the maintenance department doing their own thing, and the planning department within the same organization in the high towers doing their own thing. The left hand doesn't tell what the right hand is doing. One best example is the city of Cape Town, where I live. This is reputed as one of the best run cities in the world, and for a fact, This was until recent years when we had extensive drought and water supply shortages kicked in. As the city attempted to encourage, appeal to citizens, to consumers, to conserve energy, it was discovered that there were more leakages within the city's supply networks, to such an extent that out of 1 billion liters of water that were being pumped daily, 300 million went disappearing in the networks. We also have inherited these styles where a school bus, instead of adopting a school bus, mothers prefer to take one 4-year-old child in a big 4x4. It's partly a cultural thing. We have mimicked these lifestyles from the same industrial revolution. So there's clearly a need for a holistic re-examination of how we are doing things. Many of these things are really they are not deliberate waste, but they are due to misinformation. So, but there's often a human resistance to change. Obviously, the greed is a major factor, and accepting responsibility is another vital area that need examination. One example, on the asset management website of the Western Cape government, we have the standard statistics, which is quite common, that says buildings are responsible for consuming 25% of water, 33% of greenhouse gas emissions, and so on. In other words, the effort is to personify buildings and sit on the fence, push all the responsibility to buildings as though they were the culprits, whereas it's actually humans who do it. A cynical way of illustrating it is when we were under lockdown, these buildings never consumed, never committed the crimes we accuse them of. The reality is the demand comes out of human choices. The waste comes out of human choices. So you and I are part and parcel of the solution. But do we always know what to do? This is the thing. Eskom, the national utility of South Africa, is grappling with acute supply capacity shortages, and naturally they are appealing to industry and the general consumers to reduce energy consumption. But there is really very little that has changed, and the question is why? One answer would be that there is a lack of a tangible metric, a yardstick, and best practice guidelines for the consumers to be able to know what to do. In the next part of this series, Understanding Energy Efficiency, will seek to empower the consumer to fully comprehend what constitutes energy waste, so that he will be able to get equipped with high impact tools and metrics to be able to manage effectively their own